Okay, just.
Good morning. We will call to order the Douglas County Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, September 17th. To those on Zoom and in here, please grant us some grace. We are having audio trouble. So for that, we will be passing the mic around and the clerk will be making some adjustments here. And we will be doing voice votes today and not by the machine. So with that, will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, there's a copy of the Open Meetings Act here on the north wall of the legislative chambers. In the back, there's an automatic defibrillator in case it's needed for health reasons. With that, we'll go on to roll call for the Board of Equalization. Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Morgeson is absent. Commissioner Boyle? Present. Commissioner Kavanaugh? Present. Commissioner Friend? Present. Commissioner Garcia? Present. Commissioner Morgan? Present. And Mr. Chair?
Here.
Present.
We'll go to item A, which is approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. Also, item B, call for the meeting to set Tuesday, October 4th, 2022 as the date for hearing on certified assessments and corrections. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Morgan, is there a second by Commissioner Friend? Roll call.
Commissioner Boyle? Yes. Voting yes. Commissioner Kavanaugh? Voting yes. Commissioner Friend? Yes. Voting yes. Commissioner Garcia? Yes. Voting yes. Commissioner Morgan? Yes. Voting yes. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Voting yes. Motion passes 6-0.
Item C is citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on Board of Equalization related items not listed on the agenda. Again, Board of Equalization related items not listed on the agenda. Are there any citizens' comments?
Alan Seibert, 5537 North 140th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I was at the property town hall meeting Wednesday night. I saw that Commissioners Kavanaugh and Morgan were there, along with many taxpayers from all over Douglas County. There were also representatives from the area school districts, the city, and the county who gave presentations justifying their budgets. Ralston School District was the only one to say they were cutting their budget to try to help. Anyone who attended the meeting would have heard the dismay and desperation in the voices of the taxpayers who spoke. Many of the speakers were so upset they were on the verge of tears because everything they've done everything they could to cope with the inflation and other expenses like food and gas. Now they have to figure out what to do about the unreasonable increases in their taxes. Many of the things I heard at the meeting and in many conversations I've had with friends and neighbors, what I've learned is that very few people know when and how to appeal their valuations. Many speakers at the meeting begged their presenters to cut their budgets. A few even begged them to cut the taxes they're being charged. It's too late in the year for any of that, but the taxpayers don't know that. After the meeting, I happened to be on the escalator with the OPS representative. I said to him that it was difficult to hear so many upset people. His comments was, yeah, it is too bad, but we don't have anything else to tax. I just thought, really, that's your comment? That's how you came out of that meeting? Regarding valuation appeals, a few weeks ago, during a Board of Equalization meeting I was watching online, I heard several taxpayers present justification for reduced valuations. Several times, 2 members of this board recommended reducing the valuations, but the majority of the board in attendance voted against the reductions. A few times when the assessor's office was asked to explain the valuation, they said they didn't have the information in front of them. When taxpayers show up without the proper information, their appeal is dismissed. But when the assessor does that, the taxpayer's appeal is still rejected. So instead of using the advice of fellow board members as justification to lower valuations, this board looked for reasons to reject the appeals. How is that fair? So I ask, whose side are you on? The voters and taxpayers or the DC assessor? Thank you.
Any other citizens' comments? Okay. With that, we have resolutions D, E, and no executive session. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Morgan to approve items D and E. Is that second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Friend.
Mr. Chair, that includes adjournment then?
It does.
Okay.
Roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Boyle? Voting yes. Commissioner Kavanaugh? Voting yes. Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Garcia? Voting yes. Commissioner Morgan? Voting yes. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
We'll now call to order the Board of Commissioners meeting. Roll call.
Commissioner Boyle? Present. Commissioner Kavanaugh? Present. Commissioner Friend? Present. Commissioner Garcia? Present. Commissioner Morgan? Present. And Mr. Chair?
Present.
Present.
Item 1 is minutes and claims. Letter A is approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held September 20th, 2022. Item B is approval of claims submitted for payment and processed through Tuesday, September 27th. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Roll call.
Commissioner Boyle? Voting yes. Commissioner Kavanaugh? Voting yes. Commissioner Friend? Voting yes. Commissioner Garcia? Voting yes. Commissioner Morgan? Voting yes. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
We'll go to the consent agenda. First, note that items C, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to be removed from this vote, and we're going to move to lay those over 1 week because the contracts aren't legal, needs more time to review. With that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda removing item C? Motion by Commissioner Boyle, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
No? Thank you. I have a couple questions on a couple of items. On consent, we have item A, Douglas County Engineers Office request for approval of the following to study the vacation of Rainwood Road between approximately 84th Street and Lake Cunningham in Douglas County. It's a Centennial Farms LLC and Wind River LLC are petitioners, and this was held over from last week because we had some questions, and I've had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Kudelek, who was here. Oh, I can't see you, Dad. So this is a stretch of road, and I guess we're getting some aerial photos of this. I don't know if we can put those up so that the public could see these.
Yeah.
We're looking at studying this if we approve this and allowing the engineer's office to conduct a study of vacation of this stretch of road marked on this Rainbow Road where the red dot is, and then I guess it's proceeding up north. Is that basically?
No, it's an east-west road between 84th Street west to Lake Cunningham Lake. It's about a quarter of a mile or so.
Okay, so that portion of the road that goes north there from that red dot, is that a public road?
I don't see the red dot is the lake property. That would be about where their property line is.
Right, see the white line going north from the red dot?
That is not a public road.
That is not a public road. So we're talking about that straight line that runs east and west from, is that 84th Street on the east?
Yes, it is, 84th Street.
84th Street, and it basically runs down to the lake shore, is that correct?
It'll run down to the property line of Lake Cunningham.
Okay, and currently, is there like a parking area or anything there if you drive down to the end of that? What's the terminus of that?
Commissioner Kavanaugh, I'm Tim Talkin, Fraser Stryker Law Firm, 409 South 17th Street. I represent the applicants, Centennial Farms and Wind River. I can kind of take you through the packet. This is like a photo tour.
I'm just looking for some simple yes and no.
Yeah, there is no parking lot there.
I'm sorry?
There is no parking lot
Okay.
there.
And as I understand it, there are two property owners, is that correct?
Yes. So Centennial Farms owns all the property in the north, Wind River owns all the property on the south.
Okay. And are there any residences on this property?
On Wind River, there are 2 residences, yes.
Okay, and who are those residents?
One is Walter Scott's home, his former home, and then his son David Scott has a home as
Okay.
well.
Are there any other residents in this entire thing?
Not on Rainwood Road, no.
Okay. And the vacation is for this east-west stretch of road from
Correct.
84th Street to the lake property, right?
Correct. If you look at the Exhibit A, this would be the stretch of property. So it's from 84th Street to Rainwood Road, or to the lake.
Okay. There's a one of these that says road closed. Is there something obstructing
minute.
that road currently?
1 minute.
We approved the closing of that road about 3 years ago when they went under construction on Lake Cunningham to keep visitors out of that site. So it has been closed by permit for about 3 years.
Oh, so the road is currently closed?
Yes, it is.
So how do you get down to Rainwood Road if the,
Well, of course, the residents had to get in and out, but there was a road closed barricade that you could drive around, so the residents could get in and out of their homes, but the public was not allowed in there.
I see. And why is that?
Because of construction that's been taking place for the last 3 years.
Is
And they
it-
have physically closed off that access into Lake Cunningham into the park from Rainwood. It is physically been
Okay,
graded such that you could not drive in there if you wanted to, actually.
I got you.
You got time unless there's no Commissioner Boyle.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm the one that actually wanted to tie this over for these questions that Commissioner Kavanaugh just brought up too. I did receive the information that we received on paper by email, and I do appreciate that too, because that did clarify some of my questions. So if this were vacated, then would it become the property of Centennial Farms and the Scott family?
Yes, they'll have to purchase it.
They'll have to
Purchase it from the county. There'll be an appraisal process, which the county will determine a price, and then essentially it's almost like a reverse condemnation, if you will.
Okay,
The
and
private
then,
entity will purchase it.
and so it was shut down 3 years ago because of construction on the dam site, but now that that is done, why hasn't it been reopened?
I didn't hear your question. Why,
So
what?
why was the road not reopened since the construction at the dam site is done?
Well, we still do not want people to go down there. They're continuing to go down there even though the road is closed. So the contractor actually placed some Jersey concrete barriers to keep those folks out of there because they're causing some mischief down there on the new construction sites.
So now that the new construction site, the construction is over, does the road need to be closed to the general public?
Well, that's what the study's for.
Okay.
The road just goes to a dead end today.
That was my question. Okay, that helps. And then do you know how long it would take to get the results of this study?
The study, if you approve the study to commence today, we will immediately send to the City of Omaha all the information we have gathered through the petition process, the joining property owners, the legal description, Exhibit A you just looked at, that type of thing. And the City of Omaha will review it and make a recommendation back to the county in regard to the vacating. If they approve it to could go forward, then we will make our recommendation to the board at some point and have a public hearing on it. If they say, no, we don't think that road should be closed, then that's the end of the process.
Okay, so the time frame, it sounds like there are a lot of parties involved here anyway.
Yes,
so-
it takes
okay,
weeks. It takes weeks
Got it.
normally.
Okay, that answers my questions. Thanks.
Mr. Kavanaugh.
And thanks for this information. This is very helpful. I think, picture speaks 1,000 words. So when we're looking at this and the public can see this, it, gives them a great idea of what we're actually talking about. What's the length of this proposed vacated road?
It's 2,200 feet approximately.
And if I understand you correctly, Dan, and thanks for spending time explaining this to me before the meeting, this would go to the city and other interested government parties for subsequent approval as well, and then basically would be offered for sale, is that right?
Well, if you read the statute, it addresses the conditions can be attached to the vacating of the public road if that's what the board feels. And what we do historically is prepare an appraisal value based, on the current value of the property in that part of Douglas County, and we will inform you as to what we feel this land is worth. As I don't know what it's even zoned out there. I suppose it's agricultural, isn't it? So it'll be worth something. It's a little over 3 acres of right-of-way would be vacated. So,
And it would be offered for sale?
well, we would put a value on it. You could condition as part of the vacating that the petitioners reimburse the county for a deed that we would furnish them. We'd prepare a legal description with a quick claim deed usually, and we would exchange the deed for the value of the property, if that's
Yeah,
what you so decree.
Sell the property.
Yes.
Okay. The vacation of this has come up, I think you mentioned a couple times before over the years, right?
Back in 2005 is the first I recall, yes.
And it's the exact same, basically, proposal, basically the same.
Yes,
property
it's
owner.
exactly the same.
Right. So at that time, what happened to that request?
Well, from my recollection, there was some pushback from the equestrian group here in Douglas County. That was their access to get into Lake Cunningham, basically with their trailers. It was very public, as I recall, and Walter Scott was the petitioner at that time, and he just informed his legal team to just pull the process off the agenda.
Okay. And the process of this study, we check with that, folks interested in this, possibly interested in access, previous folks that have had an interest in this. I noticed that there's a petition signed. Are these adjacent properties, or who are these folks?
So I can speak to that. I think most of these folks live on, most of the residential area here is on 84th Street, so this is most of the houses. So we held a neighborhood meeting. I think the county actually approached us a few months ago about starting this process. So we held a neighborhood meeting. We asked folks to come out. We presented, what the options were, what our plan was with respect to vacation, and asked them to sign the petition. So most of them, they have their addresses on here, are along that 84th Street corridor.
Right. Including, I see it's like Lori Scott, and I can't make out the other one, but those are the folks actually living on that stretch of road going north from Rainwood, right?
Yes, Lori Scott, and I believe David Scott also signed. So
David Scott, yeah. Okay. Other than that, these folks are primarily the 84th Street residents?
1 minute.
Right, these are the neighbors, essentially.
Well, I think, we should look at this, and from talking to Dan, it seems like the appropriate process that we've engaged in before, we should probably engage in this again, so. I appreciate your input, and thanks for the education, Dan.
My pleasure.
Seeing no further questions, we do have a motion and second. Roll call.
Okay, and this is for the entire consent agenda, less item C. So Commissioner Boyle.
Yes.
Voting.
I'm sorry, I did have another, no, we're laying stuff over.
Okay, Commissioner Kavanaugh.
One other thing that's laid over,
So you're voting yes?
yes.
Okay, voting yes. Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Garcia. Voting yes. Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Voting yes. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Voting yes. Motion passes 6-0.
Is there a motion to lay over item C for a week? Motion by Commissioner Boyle, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Garcia. Roll call.
Commissioner Boyle.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Garcia. Voting yes. Commissioner Morgan. Voting yes. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Voting yes, motion passes 6-0.
Item 3 is recognition and proclamations. Item A, recognition of the following county employees who retired. Thomas Walters, working for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office for 28 years. Is anybody here representing Mr. Walter? Anybody online? Seeing none, we'd like to thank Mr. Walter for his service and wish him well in his retirement. Is there a motion to approve item A?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Morgan. Roll call.
Commissioner Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Kavanaugh, both of them voting yes. Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
voting yes. Commissioner Garcia, voting yes. Commissioner Morgan, voting yes. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
voting yes, motion passes 6-0.
Item B, resolution proclaiming October 2022 as Black Maternal Health Month. Commissioner Boyle.
Thank you. So I put forth this resolution to support Black Maternal Health Month in Nebraska next month in October. So the resolution reads, whereas a person's race should never determine their health outcomes and pregnancy and childbirth should be safe for all. And whereas for women of color, specifically Black women and birthing folks, safety and equity have been tragically denied. And whereas in Nebraska, Black infants are twice as likely to die during birth and the rates for birthing parents mirror this tragic outcome. And whereas Nebraska has the second highest difference between white and Black babies' death rates in the nation, and whereas Black mothers die from complications related to pregnancy at roughly 2 to 3 times the rate of other women, regardless of their income or education levels, whereas ensuring that all women have equitable access to health care before, during, and after pregnancy is essential, as all birthing folks deserve not to experience death or near-death experiences during or after the birthing process. And whereas to improve Black women's maternal health, there needs to be a comprehensive approach that addresses health across the lifespan, improves access to quality care, provides greater economic security for women, and uses policy to create system change. And whereas all Nebraskans must raise awareness of the state of Black maternal health by understanding the consequences of systemic discrimination, recognizing the need for urgent solutions, amplifying the voices and experiences of Black women, families, and communities, and committing to build a world in which Black women do not have to fear for their well-being, dignity, and lives before, during, and after pregnancy. Now, therefore be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board does hereby declare October 2022 as Black Maternal Health Month in Douglas County and encourages all Douglas County residents to take note of this observance, dated this 27th day of September 2022. So with that, I make a motion, and to be honest, as an OBGYN physician, this is something I see, this is something I know what the data shows, and this is something that we are desperate to find solutions to. So with that, I put forth this resolution.
That's a motion by Commissioner Boyle. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Kavanaugh. Any comment? If you're coming, come now.
Little difficulty hearing this morning. I guess we do have a problem with the system after all. I am opposed to this resolution for 2 main reasons. Mr. Rogers may not believe this, and the ladies here, if they're sponsoring it, may not believe this, but the Nazis used a term they called critical theory back in the 30s to divide the people of Germany against each other, against the Jewish people. A lot of it was wording. Critical race theory does exist today in this country, and it's getting out of hand. It is based on that. I oppose this language. I do not oppose the concept that maybe these ladies need help. But first of all, is our health system in Omaha so bad, so Douglas County so bad, that Black ladies can't get good care? Is this an indictment of our health system in Omaha? Our Douglas County health system? They get funding, don't they, at some of the hospitals? If somebody's deficient in health care, why don't we name them and sue them? Don't come to me for money out of my pocket. Federal dollars are still out of my pocket. Just because ARPA is there for the running and taking, we might go broke on all that stuff. And when these people need more money, who are they going to come to then? They'll be coming here, won't they? Or city council. And maybe it's time to put a stop to some of this so that we do not have to raise taxes. Here's a gentleman back here, and I was here last week, and you guys are all going over budget, and having these special meetings because you're gonna ask for more tax increases than the law allows. You are usurping authority. You work for us, not yourselves, and not for other people and nonprofits. We, the people, define your responsibilities to us. I'm opposed to it. Please change the language at least and take all those critical race theory words out of it. Thank you.
There is a motion and a second. For the record, note that no funds are being associated with the resolution. And also, yeah, it does speak to the issues with the healthcare system across the country. So I'm confirming that. Roll call.
Well, I was actually hoping to say something before
Please,
we the
go ahead.
vote. I don't mean to be so adversarial or a smart aleck, but when I was taught about Adolf Hitler, black maternal health was never a priority of his that I was aware of. So I don't know how we get Nazis with this resolution. And just because there happens to be African American people in the audience does not mean they're just here for the item that says black maternal health. So anyway, I am glad you guys are bringing forth this resolution because statistically proven this is an issue. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll do the vote if we're ready.
Roll call.
Commissioner Boyle.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Garcia. Voting yes. Commissioner Morgan. Voting yes. Mr. Chair. Voting yes. Motion passes 6-0.
Is she there? No. She's not there. Item 4 is a citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on Board of Commissioner related items not listed on the agenda. Are there any citizens' comments at this time?
Alan Seibert, 5537 North 140th Street. Is it too late for me to comment about that Rainwood Road? I didn't.
And no, this is open. You can comment on it.
Okay.
If you want.
I used to live out there and had on several occasions over the years had driven down that road, and from that red dot on the map north, Commissioner Kavanaugh was asking about, you could go considerably further on that road at one time, and there was a parking area and a playground out there. Where that little red dot was is there used to be a parking area there. And that road had been maintained until the property south of Rainwood Road was privately purchased. After that period of time, I'm not sure what happened, but maintenance on the Rainwood Road and the road north had significantly decreased to a point where those roads were extremely difficult to drive over, and it seemed that there was a concerted effort by someone to limit public vehicular traffic down those roads. If those roads are now closed and that property reverts to a public ownership, it doesn't look like there's going to be any public access to anybody on the east side of Cunningham other than a walking trail. So I don't know why I wouldn't recommend closing those roads. I'd wonder why there hasn't been any maintenance for the last several years on those roads to allow people to enjoy that park and that lake. Thank you.
Any other citizens' comments?
Thank you. Larry Storr, 5015, Lafayette, Omaha, Nebraska, 68132. With the elections getting pretty close here, I guess you're all clamming up and wrapping up for the year. You don't want to stir too much water. just before the election. So I guess I have to stir it. The election security is a very big topic amongst us citizens. We, the people, are very concerned about it, and we want you to be concerned about it and talking about it with us and investigating it. People across the spectrum in local, state, and local governments are refusing to. And it's time for we, the people, to speak up. And we're speaking up now with a new candidate for a write-in. I won't use the name, but I am going to submit a sample ballot to you and a document from him to me regarding election security from national experts that have been studying this. And they can prove it. It's been all over the place. A lot of people are into it, and it's going to be a hot topic that you better get interested in, or they will hold you responsible for not doing so. This needs to be a clean election. Absolutely no interference from anybody. So I submit this. In the name of George Washington, the end of America's constitutional republic starts right here. You can stop it. Please invite our new candidate to discuss this with you.
Any other citizen comment? Seeing none. We'll go on to item 5, public hearing. Letter A is the hearing to set the final county tax rate for fiscal year 2022-2023. This is the public hearing for that. It can be voted on today. I'll now open the public hearing. Anybody wants to make comment on the county budget? Well, on the final tax rate for the county budget. Go ahead, Commissioner Cowell.
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what the procedure is going to be here, but I have a proposed amendment to what was put out in the.
If you have an action, we need to close the public hearing, then we'll go there.
Okay,
So I'll turn it over after the public hearing is closed.
fine, thank you.
Again, anyone commenting on the public hearing, online or in the building? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve item A? Motion by Commissioner Morgan. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
You have before you a resolution which is basically act as a amendment to the motion that was just made. Was that by Commissioner Morgan? Yeah. The motion that was just made, which is to extend the current Douglas County mill levy of to 0.29559. This resolution would reduce the mill levy by a cent to 0.28559. And you see attached to the resolution an amendment that shows the fiscal impact of that, which would be a reduction in people's property tax bill by $5,776,104. And you see in the exhibit, oh, sorry, is that good? Okay, the reduction in addendum A in the materials that you have by reducing the mill levy as I proposed by 1 cent would be $5,776,104. And this is exclusive of the Douglas County Library Fund. This is our fund. This is the Douglas County Government Fund. And so you see in the exhibit B1, again, the impact of that, particularly in the 3 categories towards the bottom of that exhibit. The proposal, after careful study, is based on a number of things. First of all, the increase in our valuation of property upon which this mill levy is imposed by 7.71% in the last year. The general fund expenses that were left unspent at the end of the last fiscal year in the amount of $28,448,181.84. And the ARPA funds that we received from the federal government that we lapsed into either the general fund or county operations in the amount of $20,175,917. Particularly a specific ARPA allocation of, I believe, around $7 million to our general fund to cover lost revenue due to the pandemic. The proposal, you have before you, like I said, has involved careful study, and I consulted our finance director on this, Mr. Lorenz, who's been very helpful in winding me through the thicket of county fiscal policy. I appreciate that, and we're going to miss him. But I have one question for Mr. Lorenz regarding this mill levy reduction that would result in a reduction in your property tax bill. And that is, we passed a budget in July. If we reduce the mill levy by 1 cent as proposed in my resolution, will we have sufficient revenues to pay for that budget that we passed in July? Oh.
Okay, the reduction would, this is where there's an overlap between the county being on a fiscal year and the property tax levies being on a calendar year. So this would result in essentially in our budget a reduction of about just under $3 million, $3.8 million or so, or $2.8 million in our budget. And the question was, if we had that reduction, could we cover it? And the answer is, at this point, we would have sufficient reserves to cover that shortfall.
Patrick Bloomingdale, County Administrator. Keep in mind, though, that would be an ongoing issue going forward in future years. So if you say we have sufficient at this point, given all the pressures that the county board has going forward, it would be, in my opinion, a serious issue.
No, you do got something else. Commissioner Friend, then Commissioner Morgan. You want to be in the queue? Commissioner Gowell, after them? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's deja vu all over again. I've been on this board for 2 years, and I actually served in a political body for quite a while, and I'm not going to bore you with that again. Some people know, some don't. This is not an ideological body. We'd like it to be. Policymakers enjoy that. We love debate. I do. But keep that in mind when I tell you what I'm about to tell you. In the 7 years that I lived in that ideological political body, I've got plenty, and it's, again, certainly not to pat myself on the back, I've got plenty of opportunity to actually vote against tax increases. And then I noticed people run when you actually do that from their duty to actually reduce those tax burdens. I went home one day with 9 Republicans on my side, with 33 Republicans sitting in a body and going, we don't believe in what you're doing. So the system takes over. The part of the problem is the system that we have here has taken over, and ideologically, the legislature has not given us the authority to actually change some of that, some of it. Let me explain. The idea here is to lower the levy lid. Over a certain period of time, we're talking anywhere from $3 million to $5.7 million. What our current, and based on our taxing authority, the county board has not raised taxes since I've been on this board. That's 2 years. We haven't done it. Based on our statutory authority, we have not raised taxes. Now we're talking about lowering the levy lid, which is what we have control over. What our current situation is Douglas County gets 13% of the property tax revenue generated. So anything in Douglas County that comes in, the county gets 13% of it to actually take care of the services that are mandated and non-mandated. Depending on where you live in this county, there are 12 or 13 governmental subdivisions generating revenue from that pool of tax dollars. 12 or 13. 60% of it goes to the schools. Do you know what my constituents tell me about the Bennington schools and the Elkhorn schools and everything else? They never tighten their belt. They never tighten their belt. Yeah, what do you want me to do about it? Talk to them? Okay, I'll go to a board meeting. I like debate. We get 13% of the tax revenue. Now keep that in mind. The current situation, further investigated, and the future situation is that the county will have approximately $10 million in cash reserves. 10 million. We're talking about anywhere from 3 to 5.7 million with a reduction in the levy lid. The mandated, by the way, that cash reserve is likely to reduce in size. And it's likely to reduce in size because of the mandated services and pay increases associated with what we're doing. Example 1, corrections. There are 64 officers short. We don't have any choice. We have got to provide a corrections facility and we've got to put people in it. No questions asked. And we're 64 officers short. If you do the math, and this is conservative, anywhere from $2 to $3 million in the next budget cycle. That's on the low side. If we go fully staffed, that's on the low side. Then we're talking about the sheriff's department and deputies, another $2 million that we all voted for to give them a raise because deputies deserved it. That's what we figured. And we wanted them to be competitive statewide. The health center, nurses and medical personnel, we're shorthanded. Nurses' salaries are skyrocketing, and we don't have enough money at the county level to pay them. Do we as a community, in Bennington, Elkhorn, anywhere else in this community, do we want to have a health center? Let's ask ourselves that serious question, because A, most of it's not mandated.
1 minute.
And B, nurses are expensive. Let's have that discussion. Because if we're going to close that health center, we'd have some money, and we can lower levy lids till the cows come home. Look, I'm not even half done. I can keep going and going and going. The DC Assessor's Office across the board increased property valuations by 6.2%. In that time frame, that's temporary, by the way. In that time frame, inflation is rampant nationwide and in Nebraska. The GDP is tanking nationwide and in Nebraska, and the mortgage interest rates are increasing. Guess what's going to happen? Valuations are going to level off, and we're not going to have the money. So,
Time. Commissioner Morgan, Garcia, then Kavanaugh. And
Well, I
Frank
think
looks like-
Commissioner Friend said it well when he talked about in the 2 years not having a mill levy increase. We've had one mill levy increase in my 12 years of being on the Finance Committee. And that was when we were mandated for more courts. Our county attorney was in 5 different offices, and we decided and voted to build that structure necessary for certain. His office flooded and so on, the public defender, and they were all here talking about that. That was a $100 million project. The youth center was approximately 25 to 27 million additional dollars. That was the only time we had a mill levy increase. And when Commissioner Friend touched on the fact of the pay increases and what we're having to do to take care of those 64, 65 officers that were short at correction for safety and so on, doing this mill levy reduction, we need to talk about how much is that. Commissioner Kavanaugh, later you can tell us the amount, or maybe you know it now, what that would reduce a median home owner's monthly taxes per month. Do you have a number of what that reduces their property taxes?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand what you're saying.
What I'm saying is if we passed your 1 mill levy decrease,
how much would a median homeowner save per month in their tax bill? I'm asking you the question. You're the one proposing the amendment. You should know.
Well, wait a minute. Let me hold on. Commissioner Kavanaugh, you should respond when you get it because we have limited mic. So, Commissioner Morgan,
Well,
when he's back,
I wasn't wanting to help him know the number. I happen to know the number of what it would save, but I'll just leave that. I happen to, one of the subjects I did pass was math, very fortunately. So I'll come back to that. But I think with what's going on, and the other thing we have to factor in, and I've said it to all the commissioners, home values are going down right now. Talk to any real estate agent in our community. Home sales, the number of homes for sale in Omaha, Douglas County, have gone up 600% as far as the number of homes for sale. There used to be about 400. I've heard from Mark Weiner, it's over 2,500 for sale. That was probably in the last 40 days. Now we're also seeing the interest rate increases and so on. But our payment in lieu of taxes from now on is going to be $2.6 million less, and Joe Lorenz or Patrick, Diane Carlson can all correct me on that. Secondly, with those values decreases that we're probably going to see next year, that's another factor that's in there. Plus, the legislature changed the amount of money we're getting in inheritance tax. And so those are some factors.
Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you. Let me start by just first thanking the citizen today that came to express his viewpoint as a taxpayer, and the ones that came last week on the Wednesday session. It's always important to keep the taxpayer in mind when we make policy, pass budgets, etc. And you also give of your time to come here, so I appreciate that. You know, let's remember that all elected officials on any board are also taxpayers. Most of them have a home where they have a tax bill as well. So I feel the pain because 3 years ago, for example, when my wife and I bought our first home, it was at a certain amount, and now 3 years later, my monthly mortgage is $350 more, due mainly because of the assessment of the home going substantially higher. So I can relate. I understand that viewpoint for sure. But we also, of course, have a fine balance to consider on this board and any elected board of having to pay for services that are under our responsibility. Some mentioned were, of course, we have to run a jail. We don't have an option. We have to fund the sheriff's department, the health department. With the pandemic, we know that having a health department that actually functions is a positive, right? So right now in this moment for this year, I do have some concerns of balancing the budgets in the upcoming future. I think we all do, with losing millions in the cash in lieu that we would typically get from OPBD, losing millions cumulatively in the coming years from the inheritance tax reduction that would give a little bit of money to the county, rising personnel expenses. With every labor union contract, the cost goes higher in the millions. Rising inflation costs with supplies. So it's a really tough balance between what we have to do service-wise and also trying to be respectful and mindful of the taxpayer and those funds that are given to us as a county. This year, we just proposed a motion to keep the levy the same, so not raise the levy but keep it the same, which I plan to support for this year. But I do think that all of us have an interest in, of course, like I said, respecting the taxpayer and taking a hard look at all of our departments and seeing in upcoming years what is possible in regards to tax levies and also our responsibility for providing services to the public. So that's kind of how I'm viewing it for now. Tough choices that we have to make. I thank those who expressed their concerns, and I also thank the board here for making these hard decisions.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. And I appreciate the comments of my colleagues. I informed by the fact that, you know, many of the surrounding jurisdictions have found it possible to do what we're proposing here, which is a property tax reduction. Sarpy County by 4%, our closest county neighbor. But Ralston, Fremont, variety of jurisdictions in and around us. So, you know, it's certainly, I think, recognized as sound fiscal policy this year to do it in light of the increase of the base by over 7%. If we just do the endorsement of the current mill levy, the property tax bill for everybody goes up $12,219,375. That's what the hearing the other day was about that I attended. It's your property tax bill increases even if you don't raise the mill levy. So you have to lower the mill levy to lower the property tax bill. So this is a proposal to lower the property tax bill. If you don't, your property tax bill will increase. And so if we can see our way clear, as I think we can, to lower the property tax bill, this proposal would do that. And if we don't, then the property tax bill will go up quite a bit. And so it's a simple choice. I have proposed this to lower the property tax bill of property owners in Douglas County because I think it's sound fiscal policy and we can certainly do it and meet our obligations. Going forward, every year is a challenge. I have a budget. We all have budgets in our households and our businesses, and we meet those budgets year by year. So we can do this year, give some property tax relief to the citizens of Douglas County. It's appropriate, it's affordable, and I would ask for your support of the amendment to lower the property tax bill by lowering the mill levy by 1 cent. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can, but I think that the documents that you see before you are pretty instructive, particularly in light of the fact that real estate has consistently increased in value over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years to the tune of over 5% pretty much every year. This year, almost 8%, an increase from 2017 to 2022 of 37.41%. That's a third increase in your property tax bill at the same mill levy. A third increase in your property tax bill. This proposal would lower your property tax bill. Not to change the mill levy will increase your property tax bill and the property tax bill of all property owners in Douglas County by $12,219,375. So I'd ask for your support to help lower the property tax bill on those same property owners by 1 cent, and it's a fiscally responsible thing to do. Thank you.
Commissioner Boyle.
So thanks for that. Just one note to make is that because of the Open Meeting Act, not all of us could attend that meeting last Wednesday night, which sounds odd, but that was the case. I always like the idea of decreasing the mill levy. At the same time, when I think about the impact it will have on individual homeowners, it's not going to be in the hundreds. I mean, it's going to be a very, very small amount. I wish we could just really scale back on what our property values are, which sounds crazy, because that's the thing that really impacts what our taxes tend to be. So even if we decrease this by a penny, our property values still went up significantly. I think we're still all going to have a property tax increase regardless of what happens because of property values. And remember, property values are, we are taxed based on a state statute. So we have to tax a certain amount based on what the state statute says our property values are. So until our property values tank, property taxes will continue to increase, first and foremost. Secondly, we, again, as the Douglas County Commission, administratively, we do comprise 13% of that mill levy. If you really want to make a difference in this, it'd be going after the big guns or the big fish, which would be Omaha Public Schools. And I am not advocating for that in any means, but that's really where the money tends to be going for the most part. So I think that's the struggle in this. I'm the last person who would want to take away from our schools. I'll accept a property tax increase to fund public education. So, and I think the other things to consider are that, yes, we've had some revenue issues or expense issues that have come up that were unexpected. One has to do with the way we were distributing OPPD monies that were obtained, and so currently our budget has a little bit of a shortfall because of that, because of a calculation issue. The inheritance tax is going away, and that was something, to be honest, it didn't really hit local taxpayers much. It more hit folks that lived out of state that were related to folks who had passed away. So that was, I think, an issue too. So bottom line is, I wish I could say that by lowering it a penny, it would really help, but I just don't think individual taxpayers would find much of a difference, especially because our property taxes are going up anyway. So that is what it's based on. So if we decrease it by a penny, we're still all going to have a property tax increase based on that state statute and what property tax valuations are at this time.
Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where did I leave off? I think at mortgage interest rates increasing. Look, take a personal budget. We all have them. Let's say you make $50,000 a year and your boss says you're not making any more than that. That's what you got. And let's say your required expenditures go up by 10%, but your boss gives you a 2% increase at the end of the year. You better start looking for cuts. I've done it. Didn't like it, but I had to do it. And my wife was with me, and we did it. Look, not to be too trite, by the way, the ARPA money doesn't count. We can't spend that anywhere we want. We can't load up budgets and say, guess what, we have 55 million more. Let's start tossing this federal money into our budget and increase our cash reserve. Can't do it. If you do it, they're going to take it out, and they're either going to take it back or do something. I'd have to talk to Patrick or Joe. I don't know what they'll do with it. Fact of the matter is, we'd be violating statutory authority. I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you I firmly believe in the idea of show me the cuts. We start reducing levy lids. We reduce a levy lid, show me the cuts. Based on what I just told you 10 minutes ago on what we're staring down the barrel of. All of those things that I showed you, corrections, sheriff's department, health center, other pay increases associated with various other departments that we've all approved, the OPPD in lieu of taxation obligation of 2.6 million, that's way more than 10 mil. Well, not way more, it's right at about 10 million. But my crystal ball also tells me that's going up because we haven't even touched on all the departments that we are mandated to actually do. 56 mandated services at the county level. 56. 22 non-mandated. Show me the cuts. Call my bluff. You throw them out here on the table and we start cutting stuff, the law library. I have my name on a resolution. I like the law library. I've been over there. We're not mandated to do it. What is that, 400, 500,000 bucks? Cut it. Shut it down. Take the books out and start distributing them. Show me the cuts. My crystal ball also tells me that the day will come that we'll propose, this board, whether I'm on it or not, somebody's going to propose a levy lid increase. If we did something like this, A year from now or 2 years from now, somebody's going to promote an increase. You know why? Because we won't have enough money to take care of the mandated services. And then somebody's going to go, well, we lowered it a penny. We can, everybody will understand. I'll get reelected. I don't care if I get reelected. The bottom line is you're stepping on mice and there's elephants running over your head. Here's what I mean by that. If I'm not willing to vote for a levy limit increase because I feel like it's limited control based on our taxing authority, it's not solving a systemic problem. And the systemic problem is if you had a $300,000 home and you're getting $80 back, you get that $80 back when we lower the levy lid, but they just valued your home next year at $380. Guess how much your taxes are going up? And we don't have any control over that, except at the Board of Equalization, where somebody walks in and says, this is unfair. And me and PJ go, yeah, it is. And then nothing happens. It's not solving a systemic problem. And the systemic problem is the way we tax property based on state law. The way we tax property in this state is subjective. We assess property values in this state. That way to tax people, that mechanism is flawed. It's subjective. It's not a good way to tax people. Property tax is not unconstitutional.
30 seconds.
But the way you do it and the way you implement those things based on statutory law is subjective. So you better have it all nailed down. It better be effective. That subjectivity does not breed growth, and it doesn't breed good, solid performance with mandated services. We need 64 more corrections officers. We got to pay them $28 an hour. We've got an obligation. This is ideological. Make no mistake about it, and it doesn't need to be. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you. I happen to be running for office, and I've never said this before. I'll say it on the record. It's always easy to say things when you're running. You have a tough race, whatever. I would hope that I'll be elected because I don't have an opponent. But I will tell you, I wouldn't say it if I did have an opponent. I will not, under any circumstance, vote for a mill levy increase during my term in office. And so that's where I am for certain. At the same time, Alan, I appreciate you coming down and some of the comments that you made this morning. Commissioner Friend touched on something about the Board of Equalization. We have a building at 25th and Harney. We don't have it. Our community has it. That was recently purchased. Howard Hahn was here, and our previous county assessor for 16 years, Roger Morrissey, was here, who has all kinds of appraiser licenses and so on, stating that they purchased that for approximately $3.5 million. Our assessor raised it to $19.5 million. I made the motion to reduce it back to the number it should have been, and some others along with it, as Commissioner Friend said, he seconded. We didn't get that passed because we have some commissioners in the last year, 2 years, whatever, vote 90-some% of the time against any change at the Board of Equalization because we rely on the referees. But the referee will tell you, I didn't have time to go through some of the information that was furnished to me. And I don't fault them for that because they have a tough job. Salaries are going to continue to increase. And we're going to be faced with what's happening in the market today, and that is a decline in the value of homes, whether it's on 49th and Farnham or wherever it might be. And on commercial properties, take a look as you drive on Dodge at 90th or out in Old Mill, or go over to 118th and Blondo where you have 160,000 and 3 different buildings vacant, or in Regency where there's floors of buildings that have been vacant 3 years. And what that means is the owners of those properties have a decline in value because of income. And the assessor looks at that. And a good example is 10810 Farnham. It was bought for $12 million in '06. It recently sold by Colliers. It wasn't selling. They had a public auction. It sold for under $4 million in the last 90 days. That person that purchased it for that is going to be down to the assessor's office and show what he paid for that property, or she paid for it, and should get a reduction. And I'd support that, because that's what the value was in an arm's length transaction. And just to remind, it's easy to throw out numbers that this is 5.7 million and so on. What does it mean for the homeowner? If we vote for this, the median home is around $250,000 in Omaha. It's going to be a tremendous reduction. It's going to be almost $7 a month that they're going to have a reduction on their home. It could be $7.40 a month that your taxes are going to be reduced. And with the gas increases that we've had in the last week, and the signs have increased, that should get you some gas for almost a week.
1 minute.
So we're not really doing as much. And I think that Commissioner Friend touched on it. We're mandated to make sure that we have the safety, and with the sheriff's office, our correction facility, 911, we're having to give pay increases to continue to make certain we're operating those at the full capacity that we can for everyone's safety. Thank you.
Commissioner Boyle.
All right, thank you. And so I consider Commissioner Morgan our board expert on property valuation. So anytime he has something to say about this, I take it to heart, and I respect his opinion immensely on this. Also, I think Commissioner Friend really articulated all the things that we are up against from a budgetary standpoint, but also how really a lot of this does rely on the state statute. So in my opinion, this is a bigger problem than a mill levy issue. We really need to do something at the state level. Actually, I shouldn't say we. State legislators need to do something at the state level on property tax reform in a big way. All of us feel the hit. A lot of folks, despite inflation, we can't give raises, say, to county employees based on inflation rates because it's so crazy. That would just increase property taxes more. And I know that a lot of people are feeling the hit from that. And to see that because your property value increased, you're getting a hit. I mean, I know some people are just going to be taxed out of their homes, and we don't want to see something like that happen. So, but in the spirit of debate, my colleague, Commissioner Kavanaugh, would like to add a few more comments. So I'm going to relinquish the rest of my time to him.
Oh, we can't do that.
We can't do that?
No.
Okay.
Don't want to set that precedence either, so everybody's got that too. So if you want to continue on yours, you can.
No, I don't have a question to ask, Jim. So. Okay. I think I'm finished then. Right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Commissioner Garcia.
Check. All right. Just to be brief, I also pledged to not increase the levy when I ran for office in 2020. I plan to keep that pledge for my entirety of my first term. On one note, on the other note, I would agree that the taxation in Nebraska is a state level systemic problem. For one, as far as assessing property, if I'm not mistaken, the state law requires us to be within 92 to 100% of market value of a home. That's a state law that requires us at the county level to keep chasing the market and increasing property assessments. If that state law was changed down to 88%, 90%, something lower, that might provide some relief to not continue chasing a market that has increased so substantially in recent years. We also know that because the state does not provide more local funding to local schools, therefore the schools assess taxes quite high. It's 60% of your tax bill goes to the schools. So if the state gave more money to local schools, then they could provide some tax relief, and because we're 13% of your tax bill. Metro Community College, where I used to serve, is 4% of your tax bill. Like those of us who get a much smaller percentage of your tax bill do a lot with a little, you know. So at a system level, you know, we have to address how we fund local schools for that problem of addressing the burden of taxes for local taxpayers, like all of us too, like I mentioned before. So I just wanted to echo and agree with trying to address this at a state level, and that's it.
Everybody's timed out on what they can speak, but Commissioner Kavanaugh, I'm assuming you want to propose a motion?
I'm sorry?
You want to propose your motion?
Yes, I do.
So that is a motion. Is there a second? Well, technically there's a motion on the floor. This is a motion to amend by a whole the current motion on the floor. That is a motion. Is there a second?
So, Mr. Chairman, just so.
Oh, wait a minute. You got a motion right now.
In the record, I
Okay.
say what the gist of the motion is.
You got a point of information.
So currently, the motion is to continue the mill levy at .29559. My resolution. Oh. Currently, the motion is to continue the mill levy at .29559. My resolution amends that by reducing that mill levy 1 cent to .28559, a reduction of $5,776,104 in the property tax bill in Douglas County. That's the resolution.
There's a second. That motion dies for lack of second. The original motion on the floor is for the approval of the current rate. If someone wants to comment on the current rate situation, they can come now. If someone wants to comment on the resolution, they can come now.
While they're coming up, Mr. Chair, I was handing out I was passing out handouts when the original motion and second was made. Could you repeat that for me?
The original motion was by Commissioner Morgan. The second was by Commissioner Friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. And my property estimation just went up by $46,000. I wasn't very successful with the referee. But I want to tell you what's wrong with this system. Oh, market value is just wonderful. Wonderful as hell. Market value was influenced severely by people coming in from like California and bidding way over the ASCII price. And then you set my values based on that. That has to change. You need a different system. Now you're going to scream because, oh, the sale price of the houses are going down. You're going to lose revenue. You're going to lose programs too. So why not start cutting the programs now and come up with a different system of setting assessed values? You've got real estate professionals that are doing it. And you've got real estate professionals that are referees that say, oh, what's the matter? Don't you want to move to Western Avenue in Dundee? No, I don't, because you're dumping houses at way over the market value. And who is helping to do that but real estate professionals? You have to have somebody else in there, like citizens. Thank you for allowing us to have one more word on this, because normally when the first part of the hearing is closed, there is no further discussion. But we just learned a lot here in the last half hour to an hour. Thank you for that discussion.
Anyone else?
Alan Seibert, 5537 North 140th Street. I want to clarify something. I'm not advocating for tax levying, reducing tax levies or reducing valuations. Maybe I may have given you the wrong impression. What I'm trying to say is, you're talking about systemic problems. Yeah, there are several systemic problems that need to be addressed. And one of the biggest ones is the way the Douglas County assessor is coming up with valuations. They are not raising valuations of every property in Douglas County. I don't think they can. I've built houses, sold houses, and I've analyzed numbers. My career was in numerical analysis. The biggest problem that I see with them, and I've got the documentation to prove it, they're using cost of construction to set valuations, not fair market values. This last gentleman was saying it. I've heard it at the meeting the other night. People think that sales values are being used. They are not. It's cost of construction. And that's one of the reasons why, especially the other night, people were talking about getting valuation increases of 100 to 200%. They can't figure out how that makes any sense. Market values are being ignored. It's cost of construction, and that explains it. What happens is cost of construction historically has lagged market value. It's either behind or ahead. Right now it's considerably ahead. For my valuation, it was 8 to 10% higher than what it should have been. And that was based on a professional appraisal of my property that I had to pay $700 for. My impression of the appeals process is, if you don't have a professional appraisal, you don't have a very good chance of getting any relief on your valuation. I don't think there's very many taxpayers that can afford to pay that much to get some valuation relief. What's going to happen next year? Cost of construction. It used to be about a third of the cost of a house was labor. Now it's half that. Labor's about half that to build a house. Labor prices and cost of materials are not going to be going down that much anytime soon. Not like the valuation of houses or the sales price of houses, especially with the Fed raising interest rates. 3 or 30-year mortgages are getting up above 6.5%. Cost of construction is going to go, next year and the year after is probably still going to be higher than market values. What I'm advocating for is that the valuations should be the same, pretty much the same for everybody. There are a lot of properties. I've looked at dozens, if not hundreds of property records for the last several months since the first time I was here in January, or whenever it was, March maybe. But there are a lot of sales records out there. 1 year after that sale, those properties, for example, there Lake Flanagan, the new one out there, there's a new construction on the east side of that lake. There were properties out there that were valued one year after the sale in a range from 107% to 77% of what that property sold for the year before. And those ranges were for houses that were sold within a week of each other. Explain to me how that happens. I'd like to know how that comes up. It makes no sense whatsoever. There are examples of that all over Omaha. What I'm saying is that those should be, you're talking about the state requires a 92 to 100% range. That's ridiculous to try to meet that. But there are records out there that show that that is not being complied with. And there are other state statutes that the DC assessor is not complying with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, roll call.
Okay, and this is on the main motion, everybody. Commissioner Boyle. Voting yes. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Voting no. Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Garcia. Voting yes. Commissioner Morgan. Voting yes. Mr. Chair. Voting yes. Motion passes 5-1.
We'll move on to item 7, which is committee discussion and action. Item 1 is the budget report from Commissioners Morgan and Friend, and it is as presented. Item 2 is an ARPA funding allocation request to provide funding of $48,900 to the North Omaha Community Partnership for their Bridge Gap Mental Health Therapy Program. This is coming from my allocation. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Commissioner Boyle. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Garcia. Roll call.
Commissioner Boyle.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Voting yes. Commissioner Garcia. Voting yes. Commissioner Morgan. Voting yes. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Voting yes. Motion passes 6-0.
We'll move on to item G, which is human resources. Item 1 is the weekly personnel report as presented. And item 2 is legislative issues, and the clerk would like to address LB 644. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dan Esch, Douglas County Clerk. Well, some of this is just thoughts I've had, but some of it is things while I'm thinking of it. I guess I just want to maybe put on Marcos's plate for next year as maybe any changes that we can make. And I suppose for anything we bring down to the state, I mean, I don't work with the state senators as much as you all do, but I suppose anything that we talk about changing, it's probably to focus on issues that I saw from the taxpayer end. So we had some people show up. They thought they had to show up to the joint public hearing. We had someone show up because they thought it was about their Turk appointment. And of course, they understandably were upset about the postcard, and tried to explain to them that obviously about the language of the postcards what I'm talking about right now. But I tried to explain to them, well, this is statutorily totally spelled out. I mean, this is exactly what the postcard has to say. And obviously there was the other issue with the postcard. So, and then I just worry about people, the post, obviously this bill was only specific to counties, cities, community colleges, and school districts. And I think most people knew that. But I'm sure there are people who they added up those totals on the postcard and they thought, okay, this is what my tax bill is going to be next year. And it's not. That doesn't include the learning community, doesn't include the educational service unit, doesn't include the NRD. I mean, so I just think there's going to be people who they got this postcard, they're going to think, okay, this is going to be my total next year. And it's not going to be their total. It's going to be higher, As far as the meeting here, Larry, Mr. Storr he had a good suggestion. I had people, the presenters, I had them looking here, and he had thought probably better if I had the thing turned around, which I agree. But then I guess the thing with that is if I did that, then the people are addressing, when it's public comment time, then they're addressing the crowd. So I guess, I don't know how hard it is to move this thing around, but I guess that's something, if we had it here next year, is what I do. But I think most people don't like having it here because it's downtown, and of course you got to pay for meters. So I understand all that, but I looked into having it other places, and I mean, no one's going to give us a space for free, so it's going to be more expensive if I move it. The parking situation for the people from the public who want to attend, I agree it's probably better, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost us more money to have it somewhere else. So I'm not sure what to do there, because I don't think this is going away. I think this is something we're going to have to keep doing for a while. And I guess my final thing, I mean, I just when you're at the hearing, I just felt like it was best to let people say what was on their mind, and for the most part. I mean, I don't think anybody was, for the most part, no, but I don't know. I guess sometimes the things directed at the presenters I didn't care for. I mean, these aren't the elected representatives, you know, and, but I understand people are upset, and I think most of the people that were presenting understood that. They didn't take it personally, but there were times where I felt like, I don't know, felt bad for maybe not saying something, but I just felt like if I, you know, said anything, I'd just make the situation worse. I don't think people came here to have their clerk tell them, oh, I need to watch what you say. But my final thing would be, I just feel like the assessor's office gets too much of the burden of this whole thing. I know valuations play a role, but I just, you know, they're not the only ones. I just feel like there were, I feel like most people understand it, but there were definitely comments, whether it was during the meeting or emails we got leading up to the meeting of, I mean, people were acting as if the assessor's office was setting the tax rate for all these political subdivisions. And yeah, a lot of the things they, you know, there's 225,000 parcels of property, so I think they would even admit that they probably have some wrong out there, but in general, they submit their valuations to the Department of Revenue, the Property Tax Assessment Division, and they sign off on it. And if they don't sign off on it, well, we know their solution, just hit up every piece of parcel in Douglas County to make up for it. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I want to just add to what Commissioner Boyle said. Even though only 2 of us was present, law prevented us from not being there. I did watch it, so did good holding up. I just like to note for the record that if you don't know the term, Commissioner Friend used a mandated program versus unmandated. Mandated means in state law, and there's a term unfunded mandate. So I want to be sure when this law passed, it was an unfunded mandate, which to everybody that wants to be conscious, it costed you another approximately $250,000. Am I right in that? $250,000 unpaid to implement that. So if the state's going to make you do it, they should give you some money to do that. So I'll just note that for the record. There's no other legislative items. We do have need for an executive session for litigation and legal advice. Anything else? Is there a motion to go into executive session for litigation and legal advice? So motion by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Boyle. Roll call.
Voting yes. Commissioner Boyle was, my mic wasn't working. Both Commissioner Boyle and Kavanaugh voting yes. Commissioner Friend? Yes. Voting yes. Commissioner Garcia? Voting yes. Commissioner Morgan? Yes. Voting yes. Mr. Chair? Yes. Voting yes. Motion passes 6-0.